Man, did I pick a crazy week to come back? So I've been gone for a few weeks and Nintendo's been going through the ringer. I mean, if you know, pay any attention to video games in the slightest, you realize what has happened since what was supposed to be a very, very exciting time for gamers, especially fans of the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo as a whole. There's just been a lot going on. So we're gonna kind of go over everything today, kind of recap the direct a little bit, talk about pricing, tariffs, third party games not being fully on the disc or the card, virtual cards, everything going on with the Switch 2. So if y'all new to the channel, please make sure you do hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, leave a comment. Let's get right into it. So for the younger viewers out there, I realize I have to kind of go back a little bit to let you know, where Nintendo's kind of been on this roller coaster. Now, if you're, Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you probably just realize, okay, we've had, the success with the Wii and the Nintendo DS, or maybe the Switch was your first console. But honestly, the Wii kind of saved Nintendo a bit, like when you really think about it. So before the Wii, like Nintendo 64 was really great and everything like that, but it was competing with the PlayStation, which moved to a CD based, gaming system. And then they tried to, compete with the Power, with the GameCube, and only sold around 20 million copies or units, and that wasn't doing very good for them. So now with the Wii, Nintendo decided, okay, we're going to rely more on, you know, changing our approach. We're not just going to focus on power. We're going to focus on innovation. We're going to focus with the Wii remote. A lot of people that own the Wii, believe it or not, just played Wii Sports. They never played Mario Galaxy or Metroid Prime 3 or any of these games that people are known to love the Wii for. And so this was working for Nintendo for a while until it wasn't. So like I said, it was a roller coaster. You had the Nintendo 64, but then the GameCube was down. Then you had the Wii, which was a smash success, but then you had the Wii U, which obviously didn't work out. Then you had the Switch, which came and just we've seen it sold. It's the second best selling system of all time. It surpassed the Nintendo DS as the second best gaming console in general, handheld or home console, to pass the amount of sales. The attach rate, there's had like I think it was like 70 different games that are sold over a million copies, over a billion units of software. A lot of things we're going to talk about in this video weren't their fault necessarily, but a lot of it is, and it just kind of compounded into what may be I don't want to say disastrous, but definitely not nowhere near the amount of success that they had with the Nintendo Switch, which already was going to be a tall uphill battle to fight. Now we move on to April 2nd, which was on everybody's calendar. Everybody's been waiting for, okay, we got the Switch 2 teaser back in February. We're finally getting a Switch 2 Direct that's going to show us everything we've been waiting for. And to be honest, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. When I told a lot of people what the Switch 2 is going to be, I said it's going to be more powerful, probably going to cost around $400. They're going to have a lot more third-party support. We're going to have a few first-party games, maybe a 3D Mario or something like that, but nothing super crazy to start off with. And I was pretty much right with most of that. Of course, it opened with Mario Kart World, which we had saw a little bit of in that teaser, and we got a good look at a lot of things. A lot of the first party games, some specs, some enhancements for Switch 2 versus Switch 1, kind of telling you what you want to get it for. No word on pricing, but as far as the the specs and enhancements, it was pretty much what I thought and what I said it was going to be with the system, and what a lot of people said, right? So we're getting a bigger screen with the same thickness of the Switch, so it's not going to be like a beefy Steam Deck. You got a full almost 2 inches bigger than the original Switch and a whole inch bigger than the OLED. And if there's anything I learned in life, you can always use an extra inch. Am I right? All right. So then we got 1080p handheld mode, up to 60 frames, even 120 frames when docked, even going up to 120 frames, like I said, which is good for shooters such as, Metroid Prime, hopefully Call of Duty at some point in the future. And then we even saw that while it's docked, it will go up to 4K. And also there's HDR support, handheld mode, not just on the TV. So a lot of good specs coming out of this. We do know it's going to be backwards compatible, so you can transfer your save data, your digital games and things like that from your original Switch to the Switch 2 seamlessly, which was very important for a lot of people. We got a new Pro controller, which is like the standard one that we've seen for the original Switch and things like that. A few added buttons and things like that. And then from the third party side of things, we got a lot of announcements. A lot of these publishers and developers, they missed out on the Switch one or it couldn't run on the Switch one. They said, we're not missing it again. So you got Hades 2, Split Fiction, Borderlands 4, Cyberpunk Ultimate Edition as Phantom Liberty. We got the reveal of a brand new FromSoft game exclusive to the Switch 2. I'm not gonna lie, this did surprise me. Like, it was exciting, but I also thought it was kind of weird because, you know, developers have shied away from these third-party exclusive. Maybe it's a timed exclusive, but they've been kind of shying away from it because they're not getting the money, or it's not really worth it anymore to just be exclusive to one system. And people aren't really buying systems for exclusives anymore, or that's kind of what we're seeing. But either way, kind of exciting. I believe it is a multiplayer based game, which sounds kind of strange that FromSoft is kind of doing that. They are doing that with Elden Ring, Night Reign, so it's not out of their wheelhouse necessarily, but we'll just have to see, you know, if the audience on the Switch actually want this game, because I feel like it's, you know, people that have multiple systems will get it, but I don't think this is pulling the Switch audience necessarily to you know, go and pick up this game. But who knows? They got Elden Ring coming out as well, so maybe they'll, you know, they're banking on pulling a bunch of that new audience of people that didn't play it or people that want to play it portably, and then wanting to try out this brand new IP. All right, now since we already, you know, summarized everything with the Direct, now let's kind of dive deeper into some of those new features and things going on with the Switch 2 outside of the just the, you know, regular resolution and performance. So the first part about that is the game share as well as game chat. I know it's crazy because it is now probably 20 years Nintendo is late on this, considering, you know, that Xbox Live Chat, PlayStation iToy, and all this kind of stuff, broadband and all that. But either way, at least they're doing it, and a lot of people are excited about it. A lot of people are wondering what that C button on the Switch 2 as well as the Switch 2 Pro controller actually is, and that does stand for chat or game chat. So once you press that, you can go on with, it's up to 4 players. You can see it's a little choppy as people are playing, but they also introduced the new Switch 2 camera, which you can buy. I believe it is $50, so that's an additional cost. But it does bring the little kind of Twitch as streamer type of thing going on feature that a lot of people could put on. You could play with 4 people. They could show you what they're playing. You could watch what they're playing. They could see what you're playing, and then you could chat from there. It does a really good job of kind of having that green screen effect to just show you, put you in, you know, either your living room if you want to, or change the feature to have it where it's just showing what game you're playing, and they can see, you know, you can see what each other are playing, and vice versa. Now, the other thing with this is the fact that it is available the same day as Nintendo Switch 2, but as a lot of the features, as you'll see, you do need Nintendo Switch Online, which makes sense. But what we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to the pricing, this will be free at first, but then March 31st next year, you will then have to pay for it. We do not have a price on that yet, but it is something that you will have to pay for eventually. And we'll talk about it in the pricing section, but Nintendo is starting to nickel and dime, which is going to turn a lot of people off from this system. Now, the next feature we saw was what's called game share. So now, if, you know, and we saw this with the DS back in the day where if everyone didn't have the game, one person could have the game and then other people could connect to it. But what is cool is that we're seeing that the Switch and the Switch Lite is also compatible with this, as long as the main console that everybody is sharing from is the Switch 2. So this is pretty cool, you know, to get people, if everybody doesn't have the game and, you know, you don't want to spend that money, but it does appear that it does have online play as well. So it's not just local playing, which is pretty cool. The online play, you will have to be local with the person playing it, but you can play online together. And I did already mention the enhancements that are coming out, but that full list is right here. As I mentioned, you got Bowser's Fury, you got Echoes of Wisdom on here, you got Scarlet and Violet, which is going to be the big selling point for a lot of people, to be honest, because even though we're heading towards Gen 10, you know, people have been waiting for those games to be optimized. I'm surprised Legends Arceus wasn't on the list, considering Legends ZA is coming out soon, so you would hope that they would enhance that. But Again, these are free. These aren't, any type of actual Switch 2 versions, which there will be Switch 2 versions of certain games that you can pay $80 for. And believe it or not, the just added performance for a lot of the backwards compatible games is going to be a selling point for a lot of people, myself included. Now, hopefully some games will just naturally run better, by plugging them in. I know they sent us the official list of the games that will be running better, but they do look great. I mean, this is exactly how Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were supposed to look if they were on the Switch 1. But hopefully, other games that aren't included in the list will just naturally just like brute force run better. And just, every game should have some form of, enhancements as far as the load times and resolution. Maybe it's not fully, completely optimized, but at least be better than it runs on the base Switch 1. And now, a lot of people were waiting for a few games, and there was a debate whether this would happen or not, but we got the announcement of GameCube coming to NSO. Of course, you need the expansion pass, which you need for Nintendo 64 as well. There was a lot of debate on if this would even happen because we've been getting, remasters of GameCube games. Like we got Thousand Year Door last year for $60. We got Metroid Prime Remaster was only $40, which surprised a lot of people. And then there was the rumored Wind Waker Twilight Princess double pack, but we see that Wind Waker is going to be part of the GameCube, Switch Online lineup right from the start, which is good for me because I've never played this. I've been holding out on it. I was going to buy it for the GameCube because I have a Wii and I want to play on there. Soul Calibur 2's on here, of course, with Link being a playable character. I did buy this game for the Wii. It's not that expensive, but I did buy this recently. They got F-Zero GX. So a lot of games that people thought were going to be released as, remasters, including, Twilight Princess, as I mentioned, a new F-Zero. A lot of these games are on here. Now, people are kind of mad about the whole Mario 3D All-Stars game going away, which those games weren't even really optimized. They were kind of just, honestly, just emulated ports put on the physical disc. But now you can play Super Mario 64 on Nintendo Switch Online, and you can play Super Mario Sunshine as well. So will the Wii come over at some point? I think so. I mean, they might as well at this point, maybe next year or in 2 years. But again, this is another selling point for people to switch over to the Switch 2, especially with some of these games are really expensive. You want to buy them on the GameCube, a bunch of the Pokemon games and Fire Emblem games and things like that. And of course, for me as a fake collector, I'm gonna have another controller to add to the system to sit right there in the back with the Nintendo 64 and the SNES, and then I have the NES as well. So definitely excited for that. That was a great reveal. Now, when it comes to people say Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess double pack, can that still come out? Yeah, it can. And to be honest, I think it will, because what they're doing is, hey, we're going to get you excited for this, but then we're going to put out the HD part or the super collectors that are going to buy the physical version and want it on the Switch or Switch 2 or whatever, with maybe it'll have some enhancements and things like that. People are going to buy that physically. People are going to double dip. I did hear the resolution is a little better on these GameCube games, being on the Switch 2. They have a CRT filter. They got a lot of stuff going on with this. So I think that was a great addition and a great surprise for a lot of people. And now, what a lot of people aren't excited about is what a lot of collectors from the Switch liked, even if you were buying a technically lesser version of the game. What they liked was the fact that you were getting the game completely full on the cart. For the most part, there were some games that'll tell you, hey, you need to download a little bit of the game or whatever. And that comes down to the publishers, because Nintendo has these different game cards, and they vary from, I believe it's 2 to 16 gigabytes on the original Switch, and then 2 or 4 up to 64 gigs on the Switch 2. The developer for CD Projekt Red said they did go ahead and do the full 64 gigs for Cyberpunk, which they needed for sure. And they understand the value of that. Now, third parties most likely aren't going to all do that because they don't want to spend that money, right? It costs a lot of money, and they're just happy to say, hey, we got our games on other systems. There's coming over to Switch. Let's get some extra money, but we're not trying to invest too much money into it. But now you see these Switch 2 game cards or game key cards. It basically says, hey, it supports regular game cards and game key cards. The Switch 2 supports it. The key cards are different from regular game cards because they don't contain the full game data. Instead, the game key card is your key to downloading the full game to your system via the internet, and it'll have this little label, as we can see on the bottom here, which a lot of people are not fans of this because it's like, okay, if servers go down or I don't have internet access or whatever, it's like I don't fully own the game, and this is just another step towards that all digital future. The other part of that is this virtual game card system, which I still don't fully understand. So they're saying that once you buy a game, you can also have a virtual card, which is similar, which you download to the game, but I believe you still need the game card to play it. Like I'm very confused on this thing. I think it's just another way for them to sell digital games, as it says here. Digital games are becoming virtual game cards, which kind of sells the illusion of having like a physical game. It's loading on the system. It says you can share it between, if you have people on the same family plan or whatever, they can borrow the game. So they're trying to make it somewhat like having the physical game, but it's not the same again. And apparently the people can only borrow it for around 14 days or something like that per game. Like, I don't know. I think this is again, this is one of the things that is people are kind of pushing back on with the Switch 2, and they're not that excited about it. Yeah, I don't know. They've kind of lost the plot a little bit when it comes to this, but it's obvious. Everything's going up, expenses, things have to be cut. We gotta try and get people in the ecosystem, not buying from retailers or buying digitally, not finding sales, because we know Nintendo, if they go all digital or mostly digital, sales are a thing of the past, bro. They're already, first party games already still $60 from 2017. Yeah, man, I'm not a fan of this personally. So now let's talk about the main controversy with the Switch 2, which is the pricing. The pricing is, it was a bit of sticker shock for a few people. To be honest, I think a lot of enthusiasts and people that are, really, that watch podcasts, do these kind of videos like me, people watching this video like you're watching right now, we weren't that surprised. Like I said, I expected it to be around $400. Like the base Switch is $300, the OLED is $350. The price of the Switch have not dropped. The only way people have got, price of none of these systems have dropped, to be honest. Like that's a thing of the past now, unfortunately. You did have, bundles. That's a way for them to technically sell you at a discount because you're getting the game for cheaper, but it's a download code, so they're not really losing money on that. And you have the cheaper versions like the Switch Lite for $200, but we're seeing it's going to be $450. Now, again, hardware being at that with this enhanced version, all the features and all that, I'm fine with it. The problem has been the games, the nickel and diming, and then the Tariffs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But so the base system is going to be $400. Then they have the bundle with Mario Kart World for $500. So Mario Kart World is going to cost $80. If you get the bundle, you're basically saving $30, which was my plan of doing that. But then the game prices as a whole, people are talking about like, hey, Mario Kart World, $80. Donkey Kong Bonanza, $70. Every other game being $70. We're like, okay, we're used to the games being $70 now. The Switch was all $60 games. Xbox and PlayStation went ahead and went to $70. Become the industry standard. Tears of the Kingdom being one of the last big games on the Switch. Big 3D, Zelda, lots of new mechanics, $70, 18 gigabyte card. Everybody's like, okay, whatever, Zelda will pay, we'll probably pay $100 for it. Mario Kart being the push and the test the waters for $80 was, I don't know. I don't get it. And they've tried to, we're waiting for the direct, and Doug Bowser said like, hey, you're gonna see all the content we got to it and everything. It's like, that's not how it works, bro. Like, you cannot come out with a game like that at 80 and no one else has $80 games on the market. You know what I'm saying? So when you couple that with the fact that the Welcome Tour game, which they didn't put, mind you, during the direct, they didn't put any prices of anything. All this stuff came afterwards, which shows that they knew there was going to be backlash. But this pack-in game, which isn't really a pack-in game, that kind of shows you how to use the Joy-Con and the controller. You know how Astrobot or Astro's Playroom was used, and they kind of took their formula from there. But this is a way lower budget version of that, and it's $10. It's like, bro, and apparently like Reggie, back when he was the president, they wanted to sell Wii Sports, but he said, no, let's make it a pack-in game, shows everybody how to use the features. And that became a big seller for a lot of people. And it's just what you do, right? Like all this nickel and diamond, it's not going to be worth it. Like you selling this little $10 thing, honestly, it hurts you overall because now people are just looking at you as a greedy corporation. It's not about it's $10. It's like, it's just the principle of why am I paying $10 for this, right? Like it's the same thing when Netflix or Game Pass or any of these subscriptions, they go up like $2 or something or $5. It's like, yeah, for the value of what we're getting, yeah, it's cheap. But it's just the fact that like, yo, why are you trying to charge every single 6 months? Like, got enough of my money. Why am I paying for this thing? And now I'm not going to buy it at all. I don't care about the demo. I'll learn how to play the games by playing the games. I don't need this thing. And then that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Switch 2 like upgrades or whatever and industry standards, right? So PlayStation, I don't know if Xbox has done it because I haven't really upgraded any last gen games, but PlayStation has done this, the $10, hey, if you own the game already, $10, upgrade to the next thing. Horizon, you own the PS4 or the PS4 version, $10, get the upgrade version. Last of Us Part 2, $10, get the new version. Now I gotta pay if I want to get the Switch 2 enhanced version, which isn't fully on cart for the most part. You know, I have to download or whatever. I have to pay $80. So instead of paying $60 on a Switch 1 and then getting it for $10 or whatever, now it's $80 if I want to just buy it from that. Which, I mean, if you do a little bit of research, you can avoid that. But it's kind of like some people want the Switch 2 version fully. I don't want the download. I don't want any of that. And now I'm getting penalized for that. So people that plan to double dip, it's like, dang, do you really want to double dip? Because you could just use the Switch 1 version, pay $10, upgrade, which is what I plan to do for certain games. Or people that want to double dip, or people that don't have the Switch 1 version or can't find it or whatever. It's like now they got to pay $80. So people are paying a total of $140 if they want to be physical collectors. Listen, these are decisions they got to make. Now let's talk about the tariffs. So as you know, people are like, hey, keep politics out of video games. But listen, they're here now. Politics affecting everything. And this isn't going to just affect the Switch. It's just the fact that the Switch 2 is launching at a time where the economy is where it's at. The president's doing whatever he's doing. And they just announced today a 104% tariff on China. It's supposed to be like, I think 50 something percent on Vietnam. And the Switch actually back in the day, Nintendo had moved manufacturing over to Vietnam to avoid some of these tariffs and things like that. But now it's like, where do you go from here? There's a lot of people thinking like, okay, maybe some of the tariff prices were baked in, but Doug Bowser actually said from his own mouth, he said that the tariffs weren't factored into the pricing when they decided to make it $450 before the reveal. And he says that they're actively assessing the situation, which creates a challenge and is something we're going to have to address. So some analysts are assuming that this might go to $540, which to me doesn't make sense for two reasons. The first reason being that, it doesn't make sense to me for one big reason, which I don't know how Nintendo will navigate this, but the main thing, like I said earlier, was the base Switch is going to be $450. Then the bundle with Mario Kart World is going to be $500. So you save $30 there because the game is $80. If they bump it up to $540, the bundle can't exist anymore. And these things are already, this thing's coming out in 2 months, June 5th. So I think a bunch of this stuff is already stateside. Maybe the bundles will go away. Like they won't be able to sell it during the holidays or anything like that. Because if you're selling it at $540 and the bundle is supposed to include the game, if you buy them separately, that total would be 530. So the base system being 540, just off of that alone and the bundle existing, doesn't make sense unless what they might do is, hey, you have a bundle and we'll throw in a year of Nintendo Switch Online, maybe the expansion pass, right? Because that's a $50 value. So now instead of spending, was it 130 plus, instead of spending 580, you're not, well, even then, I don't know, what would you sell for 570? Like you're saving $10. Like, I don't know. But DFC intelligence CEO David Cole actually clarified with Forbes writer and said that there might have been some confusing wording with the report because he was referring to a 20% figure regarding the Switch hardware price increase. So he said, apologies for the misunderstanding created on our part by not clarifying the reference to a 20% hardware price increase over the next 2 years applied to the hardware side in general and not just the Switch. In the case of the Switch 2, we believe much of the 20% increase was already baked into the $450 price. It's not likely Nintendo will raise the price, and if they do, we don't expect it to be 20%. Also, much of that increase is in the form of not discounting prices. So not necessarily a price increase, but when we model a 20% price decrease in the next year or so, we have the prices holding steady. So again, this kind of goes against what Doug Bowser said out of his own mouth, where they didn't bake in any of these prices. I mean, who knows? Do companies lie? Sure, but it's like, I'd rather take the word of the company than, you know, an analyst or a reporter or whatever. It's like, again, like I said, the bundle itself is letting me know that they can't increase this thing but so much. If they do, maybe it'll be $20, maybe $30. But if they do that, then the bundle has to stay at the same price because there's no point in the bundle if it's going to be the same as you buying it separately. So we'll just have to see. But the tariffs, politics, whatever, it's affecting everything. And it's Nintendo's getting hit first. But now this begs the question of, hey, what happens with, bro, imagine buying a PlayStation 5 Pro, which was already $700 with the tariffs on top of it. Now you're talking what, 780, 800, 850? Like, where is it stop, bro? And this is where, like, again, not to be an Xbox or Xbox fanboy, but this is where their strategy might come, you know, into play like very well, where yeah, hardware sales suck and whatever, but whatever hardware you're on, our games is going to be on. Hey, Game Pass, $20. Hey, like a lot of that, again, it seems like Xbox, even though they're not as popular, is a lot of their kind of foresight into some of this stuff. You know, like who could tell if they knew about the tariffs coming and all this? Like they've been working on this strategy and Xbox Play Anywhere or whatever for years now, but it's seeming to now pay dividends depending on how these tariffs affect other people. And now the casual gamer is like, hey, I don't know, I ain't got the money for it, bro. Eggs is $15. Like, who knows? So we'll just have to wait and see. But they did delay the pre-order. The pre-orders were supposed to happen tomorrow, literally tomorrow. Canada paused theirs. The UK still went ahead with theirs. They're saying the system's still coming out June 5th. I don't know. I don't know if delaying the system makes a difference. I think the pre-orders is the main thing. People's going to buy it or whatever, but we'll just have to see. And that brings me to the last section of this very long video, but launch predictions. So again, I think there's enough here to have a still strong launch. There's still hype around the system. I think people still want to buy the game, right? The enhanced versions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Pokemon, Mario 3D World, Mario Kart, even though it's $80, again, if you get that booster pack or you get that bundle pack, people are going to want to buy this thing. And I think the enthusiasts, people that want to be first, people that love games, and just the first party lineup is pretty solid. Like I said, you got enhanced versions of two of the best games of all time with Zelda. You got a brand new Mario Kart. You got a new Hyrule Warriors. You got Metroid Prime 4. You got a new Kirby Air Riders game coming out, like a Donkey Kong 3D Donkey Kong game that people have been waiting for. Like, there's going to be a lot of games for people to play. And then when you add in the fact that GameCube on NSO is going to be available straight from launch. Just the fact that you can play your other games on a bigger HDR screen, better performance, 4K, it's going to sell out. But the question is, where does it go in the next year? Like, we're talking about the first year, okay, launching in June, everybody's going to be there. Holiday season, everybody's going to be there. But then years 2, 3, 4, like what we saw with the Switch was it got stronger and stronger and was still holding steady for the years because it was just a constant flow of great games. The pandemic helped out a lot, everybody being at home. You had cheap options because the Switch itself was $300, but then you had the Switch Lite for $200. People didn't care about playing on the TV. You had the OLED for the people that want to play, you know, a better version of the system and things like that. And I was thinking Nintendo might be looking at the Switch too, especially with some of these cross-gen games like Metroid Prime 4 and Legend ZA, and think like this could be kind of our premium system, like how Xbox Series has X and S and PlayStation has PlayStation 5 Pro. We're kind of cheating a little bit. Like, we're having exclusives, but we're having a more premium console because we know everybody's not going to adopt it. We have a few cross-gen games. They're still going to support the Switch, I think, until who knows, like maybe 2020, it's 2025 right now, maybe 2028, maybe even. Like, there's still going to be some games that can run on there. Indie devs are still going to play games on there. So again, I think you can't take the first year at face value, because the other part of it is people are buying multiple Switches because of the price point. You're getting $200, end up being handheld. You get one for each one of your kids. Maybe you have a home console in the living room, or you have your own personal. People are buying 2-3 Switches for themselves. You know what I mean? So Switch Pro being $450, that's not happening. That's not happening. You buy more than one, you're looking at almost $1,000, bro. That's not, it's not happening. That's the cost of 5 Switch Lites. So yeah, it's it's going to be interesting for sure, but I never thought the Switch 2 was going to outsell the Switch 1 just off of timing, price, all of everything. But now all these other factors together, I just don't see it happen. But that's everything. Again, long video, but I needed to recap everything. I've seen other people doing 20 videos in 10 days on every time some piece of news comes out, and I get it. People make their living off YouTube, so I ain't mad at it. Congratulations, or I'm sorry that happened to you. I ain't watching all them videos, but for me personally, I don't think the price is going to go down. So like, am I rushing to spend $450 or $500? No, but it's like, if I plan to get it anyway, spending it now versus spending it next year or in 2 years, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Now, I do want to see what happens with the tariffs, what that price looks like, and maybe that will cause me to wait, because I'm not trying to overspend on it for no reason. But I'm gonna get it just off the fact of the enhancements and everything like that. I sell my OLED and then just put that money towards this. But you guys let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about everything with the Switch 2? Not just the prices, but the new features, the new game enhancements. Are you planning to buy it? What do you feel about the game chat and all that, the nickel and dime, and everything I talk about in this video? Y'all let me know in the comment section below. As always, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I'll catch you on the next one.